Welcome to SunshineDixieland.com. We write, produce, and publish on the internet, World Wide Web, content which is absolutely free, void of advertisement, solicitations, indoctrinations, and all such stuff. We do it that way because we want to be in full control, and we don't want input from others on what we should or should not publish at any given time. And then we don't want people to be bothered with such things, leaving their minds to think and hopefully enjoy the content. And it's reality content. It's not polished. It's not, well, it's edited somewhat, but we don't do a lot of editing. This reading today is called Silent Hearts by Stephen Wayne, also known as Medicine Hall, and other names, also known as Stephen Wayne Hampton Sr., who is solely responsible for the content you will find. If you find anything you don't like, please comment, let me know, get in touch with me, and I'll address it. Not far from where he was born and raised, way back in the woods, there is a lovely and secluded valley, a picturesque dale nestled between those ancient blue-green and misty old hills of the Ozarks. On a gently rolling hillside at the southeast end of this valley, there was many years ago, an abandoned homestead. The rotten timbers, mildewed tire paper sidings, and rusted, caved-in tin roofs of an old frame house and outbuildings were slowly being reclaimed, healed by tenacious laurel thickets and persistent vines of wild grape and honeysuckle. After so many years, nature has surely mostly hidden away in her bosom that decaying testament of a failed human endeavor. He does not know who once lived there. Neither does he know why they left. But he does remember how an acute sadness lingered around those old farm buildings, intensifying the natural beauty of the flora and fauna. Wilderness thrived there, prolific in those abandoned pastures, woods, and glades throughout that quiet valley, that quiet and peaceful place. Today, when he thinks of that valley, all its beauty is repainted in his mind with vivid detail. And that lingering sadness resurfaces from within the recesses of his soul. Here was his first real encounter with the fact of ultimate human futility and cruel mortality. His own mortality, still reflected in those remembered images of decaying, dissipating old buildings. Upon discovering that valley so long ago, he immediately claimed it for his own. Not by right of ownership. He was then still a young man of 16 years who owned little of nothing, but by right of discovery in his heart, he claimed that valley as his place of retreat from the society of his peers. At that time, the reasons why he needed such a retreat were not very clear in his mind. However, with the passing of time comes not necessarily wisdom, but at least the ability to formulate more articulate explanation. Accordingly, he now believes that the valley of his retreat was also the valley of his survival. He was then, and remains today, a mentally reclusive, introverted person, one with a very real, although somewhat unnatural, fear of his fellow human beings. He has never overcome this fault, which has caused him a lot of heartache in life and love. Instead, he has become an accomplished actor, not an actor by trade, but nevertheless one who plays the part, and plays it well, of a hard-working, middle-class, suburban husband and father, with all the day-to-day social demands of the lifestyle. Shakespeare taught us all very well, those of us who take the time to really read him, that we must play our parts. The classical genius of his human dramas, brought to life by viable characters in tragedies such as Hamlet, speak to us through the centuries in ghostly apparitions, seemingly to say, those with the most pronounced fears of life's realities must somehow become the most accomplished actors upon life's stage. If they do not act, or even if they eventually do, will not their own fears naturally, inevitably precipitate their own destruction? A living, reasoning being may deny it, but the dead say nothing at all. Unless, of course, they wrote it down in prelude. Old fears, like so much unnecessary baggage on a relatively short journey, have their own way of never being left behind. In this case, because of old fears, he has frequently felt an overwhelming need to retreat again from humanity in general. But most times, responsibilities to home and family demands that any such retreat by him be in spirit and not in flesh. Understandably, so many times over the years he has run away in dreams to hide in that remembered beauty, to hide in the remembered beauty of that secluded Ozark Valley. If possible, with the limited ability of mere words, and if you should care to listen, he will attempt to take you there. A normally small, but sometimes torrential, spring-fed stream winds its way across the valley floor. Beside the stream there is a hedge of honeysuckle and wild rose, mingled with thickets of myrtle and laurel. There is also an occasional dogwood sentinel standing above the tangled vines of the hedge. These flowering trees reoccur down the entire course which parallels the flow of the stream, but in a much straighter line, to where the gurgling waters disappear through a gap in the hills at the northeast end of the valley. This hedge was once a fence row, but now the rotten post and rusted wire have long since disappeared under the prolific vegetation. In places where the stream bends close to the hedge, the leaves and blossoms completely over-canopy the crystal clear waters of the limestone mountain valley creek. On bright sunny days of late spring and early summer, when the hedge is in full bloom, above and beside the stream, the effect is a mystical, magical, pristine artistry, lavishly painted upon the canvas of the valley floor and fittingly framed by the greenish blue, hazy old mountains. On such days with a good breeze, the dappling of brilliant sunlight through the leaves of the hedge, intertwined with the fallen blossoms of honeysuckle and wild rose upon the waters, create an illusion of shimmering diamonds on a silken robe of intricately graceful lace. No mortal woman, however rich she might be, could afford to be so arrayed. Even if she could and would, if she were anything less than the most ethereal, sensual, and beautiful woman alive, she would be overshadowed and obscured, or thought quite ugly, in the intense light of such natural beauty, natural elegance. The valley's overgrown fields, with wilderness patches of blackberry, dewberry, and other briars, are a natural haven for cottontails and field mice. These rodents and many of their cousins are here compelled to dance a timeless ballet, life and death, the only decree ever made by God, Mother Nature. Their partners in this dance are keen-eyed, sharp-clawed predators of the sky, hawks and owls, and also cat-footed killers of the earth, foxes and weasels. The hardwood ridges surrounding the fallow fields are home and territory to numerous gray and the occasional red squirrel, fox squirrel. During the day, these tree-limb acrobats lay claim to their domain by variously and tenaciously barking and chattering. While these day lovers sleep away the night, masked-faced, ring-tailed bandits roam, always wary of stealth night hunters, coyotes, and bobcats, and bigger mountain cats. But the real prince and princess of the hills, a white-tailed buck and doe, can be seen in the diamond-dewed splendor of early morning, regally prancing from forest to field. Here they feed and drink before lying down in quiet repose upon a sunny southern slope, content to rest through the breezy, whispering sleepiness of the day. Such was the beauty of his valley as he remembers it to have been in the summer of his 16th year, 1969. That was the summer of his first love. It was also the summer of his disparity, because he was so shy and backward, old fears, that he could not find the courage to tell her about his feelings of love. To this day, the lovely dark-haired, dark-eyed Ozark beauty who had captured his heart, knows nothing of the tortured hours he spent in the seclusion of that valley, dreaming of her. She does not know, because that summer was also the summer of his leaving. When he learned from his parents that the family would be moving some 1,000 miles away to a big city on the southeastern coast of the country, he naturally fled to the haven of his valley. There he spent one last afternoon and night, staying till mid-morning of the next day, saying his farewells to the magical place that he loved so much. All through that late summer night he walked quietly, circumspectly, by the opulent stream. There, bathed in the silvery glow of a harvest moon, he listened intently to the sound of the musical waters playing with a symphony of night voices, ebbing, flowing, harmonizing from the wild hills around him. At first, his innocent soul demanded that he stay there forever, hidden away, until death would allow his flesh and bone to dissipate into the soil, just like the dilapidated old buildings of the abandoned homestead. But he knew he would not stay. His fear of slow death by starvation was much greater than his fear of a big city full of strangers. He did imagine himself as a ghost that would haunt that lovely valley for all eternity. Then he felt a kinship with all the ghosts already there. Not with fanciful Halloween spirits, but with the real spirits of real people who had lived, loved, and dreamed there before him. They surrounded him, those sad old ghosts. In the sweet, delicious smell of the wild rose and honeysuckle, he tasted the presence of their spirits. In the ancient sounds of that Ozark night, the calling of a whippoorwill, the dying shriek of a cottontail, he heard the silence of their hearts. There, safe in the bosom of those Ozark hills, hills as old and as wise as creation itself, he dreamed. In the miracle of his dream, the dark-eyed beauty of his first love can hear for herself the wild, fearful beating of his own silent heart. Many years went by before he had the experience or the knowledge or the guts to write down this poem. He read it once, aloud, before an audience of about 200 poets. The year was 1984, at a convention in Florida. He was the first to read. As he approached the podium, he could hear the loud chatter of that inattentive crowd. He gazed across the faces of his fellow poets until he found an elderly and kind-looking one who was seated on the back row. Locking eyes with that gentleman, he shouted at the top of his lungs, "Silent hearts!" The poets fell silent and stared at him expectantly. His gaze next singled out a middle-aged and rather prim woman in their midst. He spoke to her in a more normal but projected voice. "Silent hearts." The silence grew. He then locked eyes with the dark-haired, dark-eyed beauty seated on the front row. Wide-eyed innocence was painfully apparent on her youthful and lovely face. Leaning forward, smiling slightly, he whispered to her, just loud enough for all to hear, "Silent hearts." The silence was absolute throughout his reading. Abandoned field where summer yields, wild roses fall to songs of larks. The evening came, then nature stilled. All night he walked that quiet park, with sounds of night. All night we walked that quiet park. With sounds of night our thoughts did ring, a tune that night our souls did sing. For we who live but love have lost, with hearts misplaced we run the race. Who lust for love at any cost, then turn to dust without a trace. Our need soon dies, as all needs will. So close sad eyes and hearts be still. In pain and fear we shed those tears, but tears are just self-pity-ness. So hearts be brave these hateful years, and shun each day's cruel loneliness. Like shooting stars, our love and life so soon departs, and quiet beats our silent hearts. The curtain falls, the show must close. This tragedy has seen its light. The dew won't heal a dying rose. The final scene, eternal night. We played this play's most bitter parts. Now quiet beats our silent hearts. All through the night this sad refrain played quiet strings within our soul, until the fear as broken chains fell off. Then we in wonder go, as light once more comes to the field where roses fall in summer's year. The hedge grew diamonds born of dew. With morning's kiss the sun arose, and fleeting hope was born anew on wilted petals of each rose. Some loves and flowers seem all the same, but soon no blossoms here remain. As love will thrive just where love will, so winter comes and summer ends, and like this field, our hearts lie still and wait upon the warm spring winds. A whispering rush, the meadow thrush on wing departs, and quiet beats our silent hearts. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have enjoyed this reading. Stephen Wayne, E&N Farms, Pendleton Township, in the Osage Valleys and Ozark Hills of Missouri. Have a good day.